Hi, Chuck Hawley from West Marine. Today we're going to look at a project with almost anybody can do. This is a fiberglass boat repair using various kinds of Gelcoat products to try to repair little scratches and dents and dings in a fiberglass boat. Today we're going to be using my Megabyte, which is a nice little 14.5-foot sailboat, kind of like a laser. And over a period of time, it's gotten a series of scratches and nicks and dings, and well, now it's time to try to fill those in. So let's take a look at some of the items that are used to do minor fiberglass repair. Let's take a look at some of the components that are used to do Gelcoat repair. One of the key products is a can of polyester gel paste. You can also, this is in a clear color, you'll see in just a minute. You can also get this with a white pigment. Since this boat is a dark blue, I have to use the clear because there's no way I can put in enough blue color without ending up with a pastel if I use the white color. So this is a polyester product, and inside this little cap there's a little tube of catalyst. You need some way of mixing the Gelcoat, and frequently you'll get a piece of Lexan or polycarbonate or lucite board or even polypropylene board. I'm mixing very small quantities, so I'm actually doing my mixing on these spreaders. It just gives me a flat plastic surface to mix very carefully, and then you'll see what I do with the mixture in just a second. A lot of the items that we're going to be looking at are made by West Systems. Now, West Systems is famous for making epoxy products, and we're using polyester, but the tools that they have are really inexpensive and really good designs. So this is just one of the West Systems mixing sticks. In addition to the gel paste, we have to have coloring agents. So these are two little tubes, obviously one of blue and one of black, so that we can try to match the original Gelcoat color. And these, as it turns out, are compatible with both epoxy and polyester resins. And as, again, we're using polyester. We're going to squeeze these out and mix them until we get the right color combination. Let me just give you a little foreshadowing on this. The biggest problem I have with this project is I'm not a very good guy at mixing up the colors. So I haven't come up with the perfect color match. That's where a certain amount of expertise is important. And unfortunately, even though this blue and this blue look sort of similar, you got to add black, and then it gets kind of complicated. Because we're using chemicals, we want to use gloves. In this case, these are some West Systems gloves. Very flexible and keeps the chemicals off your skin. These are little West Systems brushes that are used to spread resin. In this case, I'm actually using them as a paintbrush in cases where I want to put a thin coat over a broad surface. This is a 12-pack of syringes, but these are special syringes for use with resin. And the idea is that we can take one of these out, withdraw the plunger, put the resin in, stick the plunger back in, and we can apply the resin very, very carefully. And as you can see, you can trim the end of the syringe so that you get a fat bead or a very narrow bead. For cleanup, we can use acetone or other types of volatile organic compounds. Now, what's interesting about this project is I've used very, very little acetone. Acetone's pretty nasty stuff, and both for your lungs and for all I know for the environment. So what we're going to do is to use as little as possible for cleanup. It is a very effective dewaxer, and it's very good at dissolving uncured resin and hardener. But we've only used a couple of ounces in this project so far. We also have a variety of sandpaper. Now, this is 3M wet or dry sandpaper, and we have about 6 different grits here. Frankly, I had some old stuff and I wasn't quite sure what grit I wanted to use. What I've used the most of is 320. Now with sandpaper, as the number goes up numerically, the grit size gets smaller. So 320, which is a very fine sandpaper, is the roughest I'm using, and I have all the way up to 2000, but there's no way you can even see the effect of 2000. It's too fine. So depending on how aggressive I want to be with sanding the bottom, I use 3M wet or dry sandpaper. One of the problems with using sandpaper is that you can actually create kind of highs and lows in the surface. I'm using a 3M sanding block, to hold the sandpaper flat so that when I sand, I'm sanding the high spots off. You'll see in just a minute that if we have a piece of gel coat that's been repaired, it stands proud of the surface. It's above the surface. And so when I sand it, it knocks it down flat with the surrounding area. I have some 3M fine line tape. This is a plastic-based tape that has some ability to stretch around and follow contours. The real advantage of this is that because it's plastic, it has a very sharp edge. I'm actually not using that aspect of it. I'm using it more as a masking tape to just mask off areas so they don't get resin on them. Finally, or almost finally, I've got a little right angle polisher. This is probably about $100. Very nice, multiple speeds, and I use this both to put on rubbing compound and to buff out the surface when I'm done. I can also put on an 8-inch lamb's wool buffer. And I have a bunch of rags because this is something that requires wet sanding and you've got residue and all sorts of things. So I like to use these microfiber towels. These are available almost any place. You can get 16 of them for about $10 at Costco. And these allow me to wipe down all the residue and keep the surfaces clean. Oh, finally, I've got to polish this after I've done all the sanding and repair. So I've got two products from 3M. One is an aggressive rubbing compound. This can be used to take the sanding marks out of the surface after I've been sanding it. So I use the rubbing compound with this 5-inch bonnet and polish out the hull. The second is an extremely fine compound called Finesse It. Finesse It is for the kind of final preparation of paint before you wax it. And I don't know if I'm actually going to be able to use this because you have to have a very smooth surface before you can see the benefit of using Finesse It. So those are all the components. Let's see how it all fits together.